Looking for all the latest tips, tricks, updates of what's going on in the recruiting industry, check out the Digital Recruiter Sunday night newsletter. I am not here to blow up your inbox. I don't have enough time to create an email every single day. I once a week send you impactful, a big thing that I've learned this week or realized from working with hundreds of recruiters, owning an agency myself. I'm in the trenches every day like you are, and I'm sharing everything that I'm seeing every Sunday, from content, from automation, from how to get better clients, how to find candidates quicker, how to grow your team, how to hire people, everything in between. The link is in the comments. Sign up today, or you can go to my LinkedIn profile, Clark Willcox. It's the first link on my feature section. You can sign up there. It's all free. So you get all the tips, everything that you need, free in your inbox every Sunday night. Sign up today. All right, Manan, CEO of Recruiterflow. We've talked. It's been a couple of years. We've known each other since we first met. How you doing today, my friend?
Not bad
Yeah.
at all. I have a 6 months old who now has a new hobby of playing for at least a couple of hours at 2 a.m. So that's fun, right? But other than that, I'm doing quite all right.
Yeah, back to your partying days, right?
Yeah.
Playing at 2 a.m. So yeah.
The days we
So
were young. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Yeah, it's it hits a lot different. Yeah, when it's a little one waking you up. But no, Wyatt is, yeah. He just turned 15 months, and I was telling you, it's like month 1 through 3 was brutal. He was okay 3 to 5, and then 5 to 10 was a nightmare, like during a brutal winter. And then we figured it out. We got the flat floor bed. He slept through the night, and I've been way more productive the last few months. So I hope and wish you get to that state soon.
I hope so as well.
But it's not sometimes the worst thing in the world to wake up and it's it's your child at 2 3 a.m. So, but I'm glad we could make this happen. Again, I think most of our listeners are definitely going to know what Recruiterflow is by now, and probably have heard of you. You and I met almost 2.5 years ago now. And I think every client that I've had that's used Recruiterflow has spoken very highly of it. I know, like, you're very immersed and engaged in the platform, getting feedback from recruiters, making it a better software, all that good stuff. Which is why I'm excited to kind of chat and learn more about your journey, like how you even got here to kind of build all this and be in this crazy industry. So why don't we start with that? Like, how did you get involved in recruiting?
Well, a series of happy accidents, as I said, right? Like
Yeah.
so, yeah. I mean, back in 2013, me and my current co-founder Amri, we co-founded an AI analytics company. It sounds like another era, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we raised funding, we exited that company, sold it to another bigger entity here in India. Um, and then I was tasked with building, a growth and product team over there, and that's when I had my first brush with recruiting, right? So, and I was an engineer, and I was forced to turn into a salesperson with my first startup. Um, and so I kind of learned sales pretty much ground up with mentors, with looking at much better salespeople than I am, right? Like, so just looking at them, and but recruiting was again very very new to me, and I kind of looked at it from a very sales kind of a lens. I said, okay, the process is very similar. I have this massive list of prospects, candidates that I need to go after. I need to attract them to whatever my offering is, and hope to the gods that they put the pen on the paper and call it a day, right? So I looked at it from that perspective and said, okay, let's get to work. So essentially, the sales stack that we had earlier, we put in basically the same stack, but used it for recruiting. And while we were doing this, I realized that, okay, if you want to run recruiting like an inside sales team, like a very well run inside sales team, there is just no way of doing this, right? So that was the first time that I realized the problem. And we got out of our previous company and started talking to a lot of recruiters, started building the product, launched the product. So our V1 was just a or rather a sales enablement for recruiters, kind of a product which I think it was a little bit early. So it was gem kind of a product back in 2016 and 2017 beginning. I
Yeah.
think it was a little bit early. Also selling from India all over to the world. Uh, Being bootstrapped, it's not an easy thing to do. So we had a little bit of a struggle with that. But as we kind of you know uh, grew a little bit, spoke to a lot of people, realized, okay, there is this, you know, that's when I first came to understand how recruiting agencies operate, right? Like we had a few customers, few recruiting agencies who came on board and they were, absolutely in love with the product. So I kind of, dug deeper, spoke with them and understood there is a massive need of a software that's no fluff, very easy to use, that's very productivity oriented rather than process oriented, and that's built for recruiting, right? So that became what is Recruiterflow today, right? So that's how. So all of these things are happy accidents, right? Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't it seems like straight out of a movie now that I think about it, but yeah. So that's why I say series of happy accidents is what got us here.
No, it's great. I think that's the common thread amongst any person that's involved in the recruiting industries is it's an accident in some way, shape, or form. It was never the intended purpose. It kind of just sort of happened.
Yeah.
And it's good to hear that building an ATS as big as Recruiterflow now is it's kind of the same thing. It's the same journey, and I think it makes it really relatable to recruiters. So so how you launched in 2016, right? Like right around kind of that era.
2017, yeah, 2016 and
17
2017 early, yeah.
early. Okay.
But
Uh,
not the product that we have today, right? Like it was a very different
well, yeah. So talk
enablement.
to us about that. Like, how did it start? Like, kind of what had happened. Like, how do you like get feedback to like add different features and as technology changes and your market evolves? Like, what's that journey been like?
Oh,
If you can kind of give us
that's,
some specifics. Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely. That's my favorite, one of my favorite parts,
Yeah.
right? Um, so we use some mental frameworks, right? So we use this framework called JTBD, which is job to be done. Essentially, we like to ask why, right? Like so, there is a very famous anecdote that says, okay, you don't want a nail, right? Like you don't want a drill, right? Like you don't want a drill, you want a hole in the wall, right? Like, but you don't want a hole in the wall, you want picture of your family hanging on your hanging on your wall, right?
Yeah.
So so the end state is that the user wants a picture of his or her family on the wall, and so that it reminds them of the happy times, and just gives them that warm fuzzy feeling. So that warm fuzzy feeling is the end goal, and you go four whys deeper, and you start with the drill, you ask why, then another why, another why, and another why, and you get to the warm fuzzy feeling, right? So that is very important. So that's the kind of framework that we use in terms of building a product, right? So we a lot of so we almost entirety of our product roadmap is user sourced. So we have a lot of ways where users can suggest us features. We talk to them very regularly. I I make it a point that every week I get to talk to at least 3 to 4 customers, like real FaceTime with them, so that I can dive deeper into their day, their issues, their anxieties, right? So and then we keep applying this why. So that is one uh, way of one stream of ideas. The other stream of ideas is we constantly know what's possible with technology, right? So especially with AI, right? Like what's possible changes every couple of months, right? So
Yeah.
uh, we stay updated with that and try and see what's the most reasonable way of putting this in use for recruiters, right? So and it's a difficult thing to do, and there is so much hype around AI, right? So there is a lot of hype and a lot of fear around AI. So being rational and being uh, you know having a very clear cut goal in mind around AI is very important. So that's these are the two kind of streams that we have for our product development.
I'm with you on the AI piece. It is it's something that with the name digital recruiter, you think I would have latched onto last March, right, when it kind of blew up and it became this kind of global phenomenon, if you will, right, when ChatGPT came out and then all the different spin-offs since then. And we've used it throughout the whole time. And Christina, my director of operations, she's really used it significantly and was doing a lot of trainings on it for our program. But it wasn't really until I got a chance to like breathe this summer. Like I blocked off my calendar and I was like, I got to take everything I've learned in the last 3 years and mess around with AI. Like, how do I take my group calls, my calls that I'm having, sales calls, coaching calls, all that, like, and just take that help in my content and what can AI do? How can I capture the voice for content, or how can I speed up the proposal process, or take all our coaching calls and turn those into modules and lessons, right? And just like I forced myself to do it, and it's been incredible. I mean, what you can do with doing that and then turning things into graphics and PowerPoints, and then go to Canva AI, and it comes up with a design for you. I mean, we're doing. Christina did it all in a matter of 10 minutes yesterday, from a group call to transcribe it to turning into a PowerPoint presentation with like a PDF lesson involved. It's crazy, and so that's like we're building out a whole library, but it's tough, right? To run the
Yeah.
ship, to sail the ship while you're building it. So, like, how have you navigated some of those challenges, right? Because you're talking to customers, you're in it, they're paying customers, they're active, but then you also have to build and innovate, especially now with AI. Like, how do you balance all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we when we plan our product sprints, right? Like, so it's generally planned at least 4 to 6 months in advance. We divide everything that we do in three broad streams, right? So the number one is keeping the lights on, right? So there is bug fixes, performance improvement, right? Like this is very big for us. We it's very easy to go into let's just keep adding features, and that compromises user experience and performance, right? Like how fast our app is, right? So we have a dedicated team just to make sure that the app still is lightning fast, when as fast as it was 3 years back, right? Like when we did not really have many features
Yeah.
and all of that, right? So that is number one. The number two is what is the so there is a long list of customer feedback, customer feature requests, and things like that. We kind of keep going deeper and deeper, prioritize, deprioritize, and things like that. And then there is one stream that which we call orthogonal, right? So essentially what it means is that's the wild west, right? Like essentially nobody has thought of it. We think that okay, there is something here. We regularly release features on that, and so we keep working on some stuff. We test it out with maybe 5%, 10% of the users. We see how people are responding to it. If it goes well, perfect. We then release it out. We kind of build more. If it doesn't go well, we say, okay, yeah, we were wrong. Let's do something else, right? So, and every beginning of every quarter, we very consciously decide like what percentage of our efforts will be keeping the lights on, feature requests and orthogonal, right? So it's divided, resources are divided that way, and we follow it through the quarter, and the next quarter, we can shuffle up the resources, but it stays in these three lanes.
Yeah, it really, it's just like you have the plan of the process. It's like just very methodical. It sounds like very reasonable timelines, because you're right. I've seen people just add features just for the sake of adding features. And it's one of the things that I try to be very cognizant of, even with a coaching and a training program. Because you're right, there's a domino effect or second and third order effects when you throw something new into the equation. How does that affect everything else? So I think, and that's kind of what I've seen with your platform is it is like I've always liked the interface. It's like it's not overwhelming, but I know you can do all the things. Like I had one client, she's like, I love Recruiterflow. She's like, I feel like I use it at 10% of the capacity, even though it's not overwhelming, right? But again, she's not tech savvy, right? But she's like, I get exactly what I need from it. And I know there's more I could use as I kind of am ready to incorporate that. So I guess from the customer side, like, how do you recommend people kind of immerse in, I would say Recruiterflow, but in ATS in general, right? If they're tech, I would say avoidant, but maybe more of a newbie, right, or newer, or maybe it's like it's hard to figure out. Like, what do you recommend as like a starting point or like a roadmap to kind of like getting into the ATS and then getting more out of it?
Right. Oh, that's a great question. So one mistake that I see a lot with our users, and me, our customer success team, kind of very actively tries to hold them back. Right. So you have a shiny new object in your hand, you're excited about it, and you want to do everything right now. Right. Fantastic, but that's really not the right way of implementing something as critical as an ATS. Right.
Yeah.
So think of it as an iterative process, right? So first you want to set up the basics, right? So every ATS, what the basics are: I've got my jobs, I've got my stages, my process, and I've got my candidates. I'm going to move them through process. I gotta do my scheduling. I gotta communicate with my stakeholders. That's it, right? Like I might have to talk to other team members. If I can do that in ATS, fantastic. If not in ATS, maybe my Slack or Teams or emails, whatever it is, right? So essentially, how am I going to first make sure that all the data gets logged into the ATS in the easiest possible way, right? So that should always be your stage number one. And us, a lot of our competitors, everybody provides a lot of different kinds of features, right? So you want to be sure now what's next, right? So in terms of doing it, so what happens is when you first implement an ATS, right? Like you start with process A, you realize, okay, yeah, no, this is not the best way of doing this. We're gonna tweak this a little. So you basically start an iterative process, right? So while you are iterating, you want to keep your variables to a minimum, right? So if you've already done a very complex implementation with all the automations and all the advanced features and things like that, that will only slow down your iteration, right? So you when you have a new piece of software in, you want to first make sure, okay, this is how I'm going to run my process on this new piece of tech, and now I have my process nailed down. Now let me go to the next level and say, okay, this is how I'm going to now automate parts of it or make parts of it easier and do more advanced stuff, right? So if you go to the advanced stuff right at the very beginning, it will seriously slow down your iterations, and your team, you yourself and your team will not, that initial excitement will wear off very fast, and you will start getting frustrated, right? So that's a recipe for a disaster. So step by step iteration, get your process in place. Once you've done that, identify pieces that you want to then, implement the advanced automation, whatever the advanced stuff is, like so. You do that as the next step, and as the final step, right? Like you've done all of this is when, as the final step, you set up your governance, right? So if you are learning a larger team, you're doing a couple of millions, at least a couple of $1 million in revenue. You have a large team. You have, so you know, you're. It's impossible for you to be involved day to day into everything that's going on. So you want to have visibility and governance to make sure that you are running a tight ship. That comes in as the last step. So you, any new ATS you implement this way, I think that's a good way to succeed with whatever ATS that you've chosen.
Yeah, I think the patience is it's key, because there is. It's like, okay, what's our next role? What's our next rec that we're working on? We're trying to get candidates out the door as fast as possible, especially on the agency side compared to internal. And I see that with people coming into the digital recruiter program, right? They'll want to do everything in a day or two. And I tell people, look, we work as fast as you want to work. You could implement everything in 2 to 3 days, but I guarantee you I'm going to catch some things that you probably skipped over or right. Like, and that's okay, because for us, it's definitely more of an iterative process. Like, you're going to get there every step of the way. But I'm like, take time with your LinkedIn profile and your value prop and your ICP. Take time with building out your list in Sales Navigator or Recruiter, or using the different tools that you have. Like, it's okay to take a week, right, or a few days, because we're going to layer on stuff that's going to be so transformational, not only for the next 3 months, but for the next 3 years, next 10 years, for however long you stay in this business. It's going to completely change the way you approach it if you just implement it. So there is really no, like, I love that they're in a rush, that they're excited and they
Yeah.
want to do it, but like that cadence, that patience, like, you're letting the innovation, you're letting the opportunity for growth breathe, and it does need that. It needs time to breathe, and you have to do things sometimes that aren't scalable to then scale, and kind of all those things. And I think it is one of the things with recruiters. I tell, like, it's, I get it. You're always in a rush, but you don't have to be. If you just have a steady cadence, what you can accomplish in a year, 2, 3 years with this improved process is going to blow your mind. Things that you even know were possible. And it's almost going to feel easier. Not it's definitely going to feel easier than it ever has, before. Once you get automation and your content marketing and all that stuff really going, but just let it happen. Like, give
Yeah.
yourself the time to internalize it and learn it and all that stuff. And I've had some new people this month that are like, they see it, they're like, I'm so excited. I'm like, you're 3 weeks in. Like, you've been
Yeah.
doing this 15 years, 20 years, or 5 years, like, just one step at a time. Like, you're
Yeah.
exactly where you need to be. Just keep layering everything. And you're not even going to recognize this in 6 months. I think it's really important with anything that you sign up for, coaching, training, or tech, to kind of have that and let it kind of breathe and develop and grow with it, versus trying
Yeah.
to just, it's going to fix all my problems in 4 days. It's like, that's not, nothing can do that. So
Absolutely. And another, another great benefit of going a little bit slower, or at least taking your time with the process, is that as a founder, especially if you are, if this is a founder-led kind of an initiative, is that you are on the battlefront every day, right? Like, you're into the weeds, but it's important, it's necessary for you to go to that 10,000 feet view, go to that 30,000 feet view, look at it and say, yeah, is this going in the right direction? Are we doing the right things, right? So if you are going too fast, you just never have the chance of doing that. And to build a business, right? Like, build a serious business that scales. It's important for you as a founder to be able to take that step back, look at things from a strategic level, and say, okay, this is where we are. This is where we need to be in, 2 years or 3 years of time. And these are the steps, right? Like, next 2 quarters, let's do this. After that, next 2 quarters, let's do that, right? Like, so, and it doesn't happen if you're just moving too fast, staying, on the battlefront all the time.
yeah, I completely agree. So let's dive into a little bit more of the recruiter flow. What is your favorite feature in recruiter flow?
I My favorite feature is actually the one that gets used the most, our Chrome extension. I think it takes the cake. Um, One thing is that it gets used so much. I use it personally so much. Essentially, it's a little widget on your browser that helps you source candidates from, wherever, Indeed, LinkedIn, wherever they are. So you can, one click import them all, enrich all of their information, and do a lot of stuff, right? Like, whether you are whichever sourcing platform that you are using, you can just do a lot of work right there. You can do a lot of work right inside your email. You don't even have to go. So people spend a lot of time in their inbox. People spend a lot of time in their sourcing platform, whether that's LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever it is, right? So it works with all of them. It's very versatile, and yeah, it seems a very small part, but the amount of complexity and the work that has gone into it is
Yeah,
staggering. So that's my favorite part.
I love that. I love that. Let me ask you about a big topic, which is email, right? And I know you have email. I think you guys do. You guys do SMS as well, like text and stuff
You
like
do,
that. Yep,
you do,
SMS.
yeah.
Like, so sometimes the question I get from, some of my clients or recruiter I talk to is like, how do I set up the email campaign? And we might get a little technical here, but like, what are things that people should look at for, like, who should I be emailing? How do I set it up? What are some best practices to kind of use the email and the SMS?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So, so let's first look at email versus SMS, and then so SMS, then dive a little bit deeper into the technical issues, right?
Yeah.
So, um, emails, so the channel that you pick should be dependent on your audience, right? So if you are going after early careers students, right, like university grads, you are going after tradespeople, right? So people who are not going to be working in front of their computer all day long. um, SMS works really, really well for them because the phone is very handy to them wherever they are. They might check their email just maybe a couple of times a day, but SMS, it's right
Right
there where
there.
they are, right? So works very well for them. On the other hand, for people who are you expect software developers or product managers, right, like marketing people, these people you expect them to be working in front of a computer all day long. Email, in most cases, email works uh, pretty well for them. Again, right? Like um, the younger, in our data, we are seeing that the younger the audience, the better the efficacy of SMS compared to email, right? Like, but you don't want to say I'm going to be email only or I'm going to be SMS only. As much as possible, you want to hit them from all sides possible, right? So that's number one. Now, the technical details, right? So one thing that a lot of people who are getting started with email marketing kind of get wrong is uh, first they kind of first do a spray and pray kind of an approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really work. You have to be targeted. The person receiving your email should have a reason why they should be reading that email, right? Like, so if I, keep receiving email from a company that's just not relevant to me, I'm going to unsubscribe, mark them as spam very, very soon. But even if I'm not interested today, right? Like you might be offering me a job. No, I'm not interested today, but I can be interested tomorrow, right? So I'm not going to mark you as spam, right? So, but as long as it's targeted, it's relevant to who I am, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's number one. Number two is you have to be really, really sure about your volumes and about your tech, right? Like, so there is a lot of technical things like you have to set up DMARC, DKIM, SPF records. You have to, you can, there is a recent change that Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, all these big email companies have made where the number of emails that you are going to send out is going to be severely limited. So you have to spread your emails across multiple domains, across multiple email addresses, while keeping it all, making sure that you miss nothing. You have to, there is a technical thing called warming up an inbox. You have to, make sure that you warm up your inboxes and things like that, right? So um, when you want to start email marketing, don't dive head first into it, right? Like understand the technology, understand what are the different options, the pros and cons. Take time to set it up and then slowly build up, right? Like you can't be sending out 500 emails day one, 700 emails day two, and expect that, Google, Microsoft, these big email companies are going to, silently just watch that, right? Like they're going to spam block you within a week's time if you do something like that, right? So build up your email volumes gradually and slowly. One of the biggest mistakes people make, but yeah, that's you have to, again, going back to the old theme, you have to take your time to go through the process
Yeah.
and do it right. Otherwise, don't do it at all.
Yeah, we've been warming up. We're actually in the process of warming up some email stuff as well that we're testing out with some AI, with some cold outreach, and testing out some different campaigns that I've teased a little bit on LinkedIn. I know people are excited to see kind of what we come up with. But it sounds like if I were to sign up for Recruiterflow, or if someone is looking to sign up for Recruiter, like that's something again you help with your support team. Like there's a library, they can ask questions. Like there's a whole breakdown that you guys have in your training and support of like how to do things the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we also have partners where you can warm up your inboxes if you have new inboxes. And after that, we have our own tech uh, for our email campaign feature where we make sure that you have minimal chances of running into spam blocks, right? So we randomize email sends, we limit the number of sends, we have a round robin system. So for example, Clark at digitalrecruiter.io. So that's your primary email address, but Clark W at
Yeah.
digitalrecruiter.com, Clark W at digitalrecruiter.net, whatever, right? Like you have 5 different email addresses, and we will run a round robin across these email addresses to reach out to multiple people. So we do these kinds of things to kind of make sure that our users have the chances of them getting spam blocked are we minimize them as much as possible.
Absolutely. I love that. No, I mean, that's fantastic. And then I guess how, like with the email, and you mentioned AI, like, are you guys doing stuff with like AI integration? Like AI will help you come up with like messaging or like AI data enrichment with like finding candidates. Like, what are some ways that you guys have incorporated the AI with some of the email, SMS stuff, and like kind of what is down the road with that in terms of how you're going to incorporate more of that?
Oh, wonderful question. So we have a lot of AI features now. We look at AI primarily from two ways to use AI, right? So the one is actually three ways to use AI. Right? One is very simple. Uh, you know, I could have done this, but AI just helps you do it faster, right?
Faster.
Like for example, speech to text, right? Like we were talking we were talking about transcription earlier. Just fantastic to do it with AI. So we have speech to text everywhere in Recruiterflow, right? Like so. We so you can do that, right? Like so that's number one. The number two is you can use AI to write stuff, right? Like so write me a job description, write me an email, write me an SMS, write me a pitch, right? Like so again, the most popular use case of Llama, Gemini, ChatGPT, all of these new uh, LLM tools, right? And the third and the most complex is using AI as a prediction engine, right? So my first company back in 2013 was an AI prediction engine. So essentially, when you are doing AI matching, at least the way we do it is a prediction engine, right? So we are looking at a job, we are looking at a job description, we are looking at hundreds of millions of candidates, and we are predicting who's going to be the most who have a very high chance of being very successful at this job and with this job description, right? So it takes in multiple different parameters like you know what are the different similar kind of companies, similar kind of industries, similar kinds of career paths, you know what is the kind of, so on Amazon you see, right, like people who bought this have also bought this, right? So the
Yeah.
pattern matching and things like that, right? So a lot goes into that bit, but that is the most complex part. We call it the prediction engines, which does job to candidate matching. So I have a job with a job description. We will show you who are some of the great fit candidates in your database. um, Candidate to candidate matching. I have a candidate, show me similar people to this person. What we're coming up with is candidate to job matching, right? So this again for larger teams, right? Like you have, you know, 30 recruiters, 200 open roles. Uh, One recruiter might not know all the roles that are being worked on, but the candidate that this person is talking to is probably going to be a great fit for a lot of other roles. So we will suggest that, okay, you should probably, pitch this role to the candidate as well. Live on the call, we are going to suggest. And yeah, so all of these things is what we are. So these are some of the stuff that we are working on. Another thing that we are right now in Recruiterflow, you can write emails, notes, all of that. You summarize a candidate using AI.
Yeah.
What we are also working on is using AI to kind of hyper personalize an email or any kind of outreach that goes out to a prospective candidate or a client, right? Like not field, not just hi first name. So really love your work at your current company name, not something like that, but something that's really personal uh, uh, to the person that you're reaching out to.
And it sounds like it's just like everything in recruiting. Like AI is great; it can enhance or enrich, and but nothing beats qualifying a good job, right? A specific job description that's relevant, that's really been kind of collaborated on, that is gonna get end up getting you the right result using AI because you've done the job to figure out what's actually going to fill the role, right? What's that going to look like? You've done a good job on your candidate screening notes and your data entry. I think recruiters and agencies that do that well are going to get more rewarded than ever before using
Yeah,
AI. If you know how to capture the right info, that's going to lead to that result. To you, as to your point with the kind of what's the hole in the wall for, right? What are we doing all this for? Well, it's to make placements as quickly as possible with our clients, or for our clients. Like that's you still have to have ask the right questions, get the right data. Like you can't just collect 100 roles and 100 job orders or do like a VMS or something and expect you're just going to create more noise for yourself, right?
yeah,
So it's like the more
absolutely.
are you seeing that like with some of the clients that not going to name names, but like the agencies that really have the dialed in processes, right? That have kind of the overall like high EQ, they know how to navigate client and candidate relationships. Like, are they just like, what are you seeing data? Are you seeing them kind of go to next levels? Like, what does that look like? What are you seeing in terms of like results with agencies that are implementing this the way that it's kind of intended to?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to, you know, also say something about the input of your own data, right?
Yeah.
So with AI, right, like what you are creating, you're also creating a feedback loop in your own ecosystem, right? So if you put bad data, there is no AI in the world that can save you. But if you put good data with advances in the AI, right, like you can basically say that there is going to be a feedback loop. So me putting in good data is going to give me good suggestions later on. So I'm going to increase overall efficiency of, you know, how quickly am I able to find the right people in my database, right? So it is the data sanity is more important now than ever, right? Like earlier, you could harvest job boards and pull tens of thousands of candidates and say, okay, I have 100,000 candidates in my database. Most of them are not relevant, but who cares, right?
Yeah.
Like, just it was probably true a few years back, but not true anymore, right? So. You want to be very conscious of your data quality. So that's number one. Um, Sorry, what was the second question again?
We were talking, yeah, how has it impacted agencies that are
Oh yeah.
have good processes? Like, what is using the recruiter flow, the AI piece, all that? Like, how is it? What's the impact that it's having for those types of agencies?
Yeah, I mean it's very difficult for kind of isolate one feature or just isolate AI as an overall reason for an impact. But one thing that our data suggests, and it has become even much more acute in post-COVID kind of, post zero interest rate kind of an era, right? Like where the agencies that are growing faster have a much better, they are not able to acquire customers faster, right? So you would have thought, okay, I have two agencies. One agency is acquiring two customers a day, a month. The other agency is acquiring 1.6 customers a month. Of course, the one that is acquiring two a month is growing faster, but that's actually has the correlationship of how fast you're able to acquire new customers versus how fast your overall revenue growth is pretty low. The highest correlation is your ability to retain customers, right? So I can be wrong on the data because I don't really have it on, I can be wrong. I'll qualify with that, but I know that the customers in the top 20 percentile of customer retention rate grow 40% faster than the ones those into the next 30 percentile, right? So the customer retention has become the largest predictor of growth, and the only way that so the agencies that are growing faster, that are doing better than others, are retaining their customers. They have that deeper relationship, right? Like they have one hiring manager, they are able to build that relationship, even deliver for that hiring manager navigate to other hiring managers, cultivate those relationships, build a brand around themselves, right? Like, and become um, and are more than just another vendor, more than just another service provider to their hiring managers. So they are able to retain customers much better, and they are the ones growing much faster than the ones that are, able to acquire customers much faster, but not really able to retain them as well. So that's what we are seeing, and there is a night and day kind of a difference when you look at these users, right? Like in terms of how organized they are, how do they look at their own processes, and how do they make sure that everybody in their team is, spending as much time as possible talking to clients, talking to candidates,
Yeah.
getting that placement rather than doing everything else in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are seeing a lot of that.
It, even though you've built this platform, right? You have a SaaS platform. You're an entrepreneur. All that, right? The subscription model. It's kind of all the rage. Nothing beats knowing how to build and maintain quality client relationships.
Yeah.
And you could have all the tech stack in the world, all the everything. You could post every day if you wanted, but to your point, if it's not relevant to the people, your ICP that is open to building that kind of partnership with your agency, it's really it doesn't really matter. I hear it over and over. I signed 50 agreements, 100 agreements. I'm like, okay, well, how many did you bill a one placement with? Well, like five of them. How about 100K? Well, like one. Okay, so like you have one client, you have five clients, you don't have 100,
Yeah,
right? and
exactly.
and, and you might have 100 signed pieces of paper, but you don't have 100 partnerships. And focus on the partnerships, scale those. And there's only so much time in a day, so it's like I don't even know why people bother doing anything else or focusing
Yeah.
on anything else. But yeah.
No, and you mentioned something earlier, right? Like, and I really love that, especially when you are a startup, right? Like, do things that don't scale, right? Like, just on your day one, if you think I'm going to map my entire market, send them email blasts, and of course, I'm going to land a few job orders, and I'm going to start making placements, and off to the races, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it really does not work. Um, and it's so important for you to um, kind of make sure that your messaging, your positioning is so on point that you don't want to be just another vendor, just another recruiter to your hiring managers, to your candidates. You want to be a partner in their career. You want to be, you want to be the reason that your hiring manager gets that next promotion, right?
Exactly.
So that's what,
Great way to put
if
it.
you are aiming for that, if you're planning for that, that's what is going to make you successful in next, 2-3 years.
It's a great way to put it, and it's I think the simplest way sometimes to look at how do I get new clients, great clients, is like, Mr. or Mrs. Hiring Manager, yeah, what's your next step? Not trying to get them another job, but, and I've taught this to some of my recruiters of like, you don't always have to ask candidates, like, what do you want to do what are you looking for your next role? You could be like, is your next role, are you looking at an internal promotion, external promotion? Right. You can do that on the candidate side. You can do that with the clients too. Like, how do we make you look good? You'd be
Exactly.
surprised how many people are pretty happy when you ask that question. They're like, "Oh, this and that. I don't know if you can help me with this, but it's like this, and that." I'm like, "Well, actually, matter of fact, we can help you with at least item one or two, maybe not three." And if you don't ask, you don't know. But also,
Absolutely.
even in asking, you build a relationship there. Wow, that's a thoughtful person or vendor, and it's like they don't know, maybe I can help, maybe they can't, but like at least they're like genuinely interested in like finding out how to actually serve, and it's not just about them and the placement fee and everything else. And guess what happens when you ask those types of questions? Like, you end up getting those roles and those placement fees, right? You're just taking that extra step to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more intentional. And you might ask that to 50 hiring managers, and maybe only 10 are like, this is amazing, and then you help, like, they reveal the information, you have a way to help them, and then you come through on that. But those 10 are going to be very bought into you, like, long
Absolutely.
term, and give you referrals and all that good stuff. So look, easier said than done a lot of the time, right? Life happens, schedules, time, all I get all that, but if that's kind of what you're reverse engineering, I think that's the pathway to a successful business. And again, you've built this out. You're an entrepreneur. I feel like you've kind of built it out with the same approach, right?
Absolutely no. And when we pivoted Recruiterflow, right? Like we as essentially let go of 70% of our meager revenues, whatever they were back in late 2018, and focused on the 30% who absolutely loved Recruiterflow. Those were agency recruiters. 70% were like, yeah, I mean, it's there. I can live without it, but it's there, so my life is better. So, we were serving internal talent acquisition back then. And we had a few agencies who absolutely loved Recruiterflow. They were like, so actually, one agency founder, they signed a 3-year contract. And after that, he told me, you are a fool for selling me this product at this price. I would have paid double. Right. So that kind of, got a lot of questions, right? Like, what did I do wrong? Right. Like, and that's, we just kept on building for those who loved what we do, right? That
Yeah.
means saying no to a lot of people, but that's how life is, right? Like, and that the small niche of people who absolutely love you are the reason that you are going to grow much, much bigger, right? Like, and you have to find that niche. You have to find how do you resonate with them, how do you help them, as I said, like get that next promotion yourself, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. How to meet
that's
them
how
where
you
they're
should be
at.
looking at your business.
No, I love it. Yeah, it's like you meet them where they're at, right? You meet the diehards where they're at, find out, diagnose the problems, right? That discovery piece, you try some things, and just always listening for that feedback of, okay, what do you want next, and here and all that, and like and I love that approach because we've had like a 3 month program, really about 3 years, better part of 3 years. I've tried 6 months, I've tried 6 weeks. 3 months has kind of been that intensive boot camp that people really enjoy. But sometimes with bigger agencies, it's hard to like figure out the when and the where. And so I've talked to owners of, people 10, 20, 30, 50 people, up to 200, 400, like what would be most impactful? And I was like, what if there was like a library of like everything that I knew? Because they're like, so much. I don't know how I'm going to cover everything in 6 weeks or 3 months with my team, or who's going to use it, and all this stuff. I was like, what if we had everything on sales and recruiting and technology and content marketing and everything that we've learned, that we've taught, like all in a place? Every person on your team, all your producers had a login and access, and it wasn't paying per seat or whatever. It's just like you pay one price and everyone gets a login and all that. They're like, well, that would be amazing. And I'm like, okay. So like that's what we have it built out, and now we're expanding it. We're gonna probably 3x the size of it. But it came from just listening to like the best people that I've worked with. Like, how do I keep working with them? Well, they don't always need live coaching, and I
Yeah.
don't, and that's totally fine. I don't care if they. I don't. I really don't try to sell people past the 3 months, like really at all. I'm down to do split partnerships with our recruiting agency, and we do a lot of those. Or can I help them source or screen or whatever that looks like? But if like I know you're always staying on top of stuff, and so if I know there's a place I can always access it, I get an email update when something new is in there. And maybe there's like a couple live webinars like a month that I could kind of hop in, or my team can hop in, and we could just have access. Like we could just learn what's new and all that. Like that would be amazing because we've done some alumni calls for the program and people have loved that. So I'm kind of combining like, okay, have your library. We're going to have webinars like a couple times a month or maybe once a week. And like you just pay one price for the year and you renew every year and you have all the IP is in there. And people are like, yes, like that's what I want. Like, what's the pricing? What does it look like? Like, and I'm like, oh, that's how I meet people where they're at. It's more scalable for my time because then my time is just like, okay, you need me to keep updating this library. I love doing that. My team loves doing that. You're basically paying me to do that because no agencies really have that recruiting training partner. They have different trainers, but not really as specific as we get into because we know what they're dealing with. It's just like that came from 3 years of doing it. I'm sure for you, 7 years of doing it. It's just like that's where the innovation comes from. Is like truly
Absolutely.
listening to the customers and like, what about this? What about that? And as you said, the beta testing, and we're doing it on our end. So I don't know. It's just cool to hear what you're doing with SaaS and kind of what we're doing with like IP and like training and all that. Like it still kind of is the best practice is still kind of always aligned. It's still similar. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be fearless. of rejecting stuff that's not working, right? Like you
Yes.
might have poured your heart into it, but if the user, the customer doesn't really care for it, you have to be ruthless and say, okay, on to the next,
Yep.
right? So that's how you find the gold.
The winners, the gold. Well, I love it. Well, let's wrap this up. Where do you see like the future of recruitment technology kind of going? Like, what's something that we should be on the lookout for, or think of, or a tip, or curious to your thoughts because you're in the front lines.
Okay, so the easy answer is AI, and I'm
Okay.
going to qualify this, right? It's not going to be as good as you think today. It's going to be, and it's not going to be as bad as you know just give me 6 months, right? Like the hopes, and I think we are at the peak hype cycle with AI, right? Like people are going to have a kind of a, a crash of a kind of confidence very soon. I think I give it maybe 6 to 12 months. So it's not going to be as bad as that. It's going to be somewhere in between. The impact of AI on our industry, but what is true, what has always been true, is going to get, is going to stay true, right? Like, so for example, a recruiter that's a great people person has the ability to build relationships, really understand people, really understand what is it that they want with their lives, with their careers, and helps them get there. There is no technology that's going to be able to replicate that, and those are the people who are going to find a lot of success in this industry. How it has been for last 50 years, it's going to be, that part remains pretty much the same.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think you nailed it. Tech is it's a co-pilot, right? It's there, but it can't be the main one steering the ship. The person has to. So I think that's well put, and I can't thank you enough for your time, your knowledge, the wisdom. I think it's really cool for recruiters to kind of hear behind the scenes of like that you're in it with them day to day. I know you guys have built a great platform. So we'll have the links in the episode. So check out Recruiterflow. I always say demo and tell them what you need from an ATS system. Manan and his team will show you, how they can help make that happen. They're
Absolutely.
one of the few that I trust in actually doing that the right way. And so, yeah, Manan, co-founder of Recruiterflow, appreciate you coming on here, man.
Well, thank you, Clark. The pleasure has been all mine.
Okay, awesome. Well, till next time, y'all.